All right. So Avid Suite is our AP payment and invoicing automation solution for our company. And today what we're going to be talking about is on our agenda is just a basic introduction to AvidXchange. How do the invoices get into Avid? How do the invoices know where to go once they're in the system? And how did your information get into Avid? Navigating your login screen, the Home tab review, My Profile, which is allowing you to actually manage your login and passwords, managing and using AvidXchange Invoice and Avid Inbox, and what our best practices are. So what is AvidXchange? AvidXchange really is basically nothing more than a paperless web-based application for reviewing, coding, and approving invoices. So in the old days, you get all, your mail for the day and open up all your invoices, look at them for accuracy, stamp them with a code stamp, pull out your chart of accounts, code them, write in the amounts, and then get all of your, approvals that were necessary. Well, at least AvidXchange, now we have people in a warehouse, and we call them indexers that are helping open that mail or get those scanned documents and getting those uploaded into AvidXchange for you. So while they're sitting out there, you get to see an image of your file, and it allows you to, open that open invoice and get those coded and submitted to accounts payable. So how do the invoices get into AvidXchange? So the other day I emailed you the Avid vendor notification, and on that notification it tells you that your vendors can mail those invoices in by U.S. mail, they can email them, or by direct upload. So what does that mean, direct upload? So if you have a favorite vendor that likes to, you're like, no, I'm not going to have him, send his invoices into AvidXchange. He can drop off that invoice to you, and you can scan it and upload it into Avid yourself. A new feature, a new feature of Avid is allowing the vendors, and I'll show you this, allowing the vendors to actually create an account within AvidXchange, and it allows them to log in as a provider, upload their invoices themselves, to check on the status of their invoice and the status of where their payment is. So that's really nice too for them. So if you have new vendors that you're bringing on, all you have to do is give them that vendor notice, and that will explain to them all they need to know about how to get their invoices processed. So mostly we got the mail, email, direct upload, and of course the new process, which is creating their own account on AvidXchange and uploading them themselves. So once those invoices are mailed to the P.O. box, emailed to the indexers, they actually receive those for your property, and they're keyed in by AvidXchange indexers on the back end, unless it's an invoice that you've received at your property and you need to get it uploaded and processed right away. How do your invoices know where to go once they're in the system? Well, we have predefined workflows for the approval routings. So you have approvers have the ability to review, which is to, review the invoice for accuracy, code it, and or approve it and dispute it. So you are a reviewer, and it allows you to code, approve, or dispute an invoice. Approvers can also ad hoc an approver. So why would we ever ad hoc, and what does ad hoc mean? That's a fancy word for reassigning an invoice. So if you get an invoice in, and let's say that it's over budget, or it's in the capital workflow process, you can actually reassign that invoice to someone else to review and approve. And then it comes back to you, back into your queue for you to finalize. So that's all ad hocing is just kind of reassigning someone else as an additional step or an additional approver. So how does your information get in, like your properties, vendors, codes, etc., into Avid Invoice? All of that is imported from our accounting system, which is MRI. And that is still the system of record. So we put everything for your property into MRI, and AvidXchange and MRI shake hands, and all of your information is brought over into AvidXchange. So if you get new vendors that you send to Irene to set up, usually takes about 24 hours after Irene sets up a vendor for it to actually shake hands with AvidXchange and that vendor to be there. So keep that in mind if you're setting up new vendors. And has Anna reviewed with you the process to get vendors set up?
I think so, that I am to send them the W-9, the COI, like a price list or a contract if they have it, to email that to Irene.
Yes, that's it. Perfect. All right, so these are a couple of the processes, and I don't know if you have a printout of the AvidXchange User's Guide that I sent you the other day or not, or where you're putting notes, but a couple of processes to consider when you're working within Avid is if you have an invoice that's not or is non-critical, meaning it doesn't need to be processed today or a check cut tomorrow, you can just scan that invoice over to the Fickling and send it to ficklingap@avidbill.com. Okay. So what we're saying is, if you get an invoice in and it's a net 30 day and you've got plenty of time to process it, just scan your invoice and email it over to ficklingap@avidbill. Why do we do that? Because we want the people that we pay to do this to perform the work that we're paying them to do. However, you may have a critical situation where you have a critical invoice that you need to get into the system and Irene needs to get it batched out and a check cut right away. Well, you don't have time to send that to the Fickling AP because it could be 24 to 72 hours after you email it to AvidBill before it gets uploaded to your queue. So keep that in mind as well. So if you've got something that you need to be processed today or tomorrow, then what you'll be doing is actually uploading that yourself into the Avid inbox, which we'll be showing you today. Okay, so you're going to review any invoices that require non-reoccurring capital codes. So right now, you're not working with a budget for your property. So any capital item or non-reoccurring capital item that you have for your property, what I want to recommend that you do is you send over an email to Jackie and get written approval before you even make that purchase. Once you get the approvals back from Jackie, keep that in a folder in your Outlook, make it, like capital approvals folder on your system, and keep that approval sitting there until the invoice comes in. And later on, when you're processing the invoice, you can ad hoc her in for over budget approval or for capital approvals, but you will also be able to attach that original email from her as a secondary supplemental to that invoice, so that if she gets ad hoc'd into it, she can go, okay, I did already approve that before they purchased it. Now, once you get your budget, you won't have to seek pre-approvals on budget, budgeted items. It'll only be over budget. All right, so you have a scanner out there. At some point in time, I will be getting out there to visit your property, meet your staff, and just, you know, do the regular property visit. But while I'm there, a lot of the scanners, and I don't know what kind of scanner you have, but a lot of scanners are capable of many to one. So what that means is I can scan a stack of invoices, one-page invoices at one time, but they all come out as PDFs as, you know, not one file, but each individual invoice. It just saves time. You're probably like, oh, that just completely confused me. But here at the office, I can take a stack. Okay. Yeah. You know, AvidXchange only allows you to upload an invoice at a time. Okay.
Right.
You can't just put a stack of invoices in there and then have it come out as one file and then attach it and process it as an invoice. You have to scan it one invoice at a time. So with that said, some configurations allow us to put that stack of invoices in the little tray at the scanner, push the button, but yet when it comes out, it'll still be one invoice at a time. And I'm going to have to show you actually at some point in time when I get out there to visit your property and see if you have that capability on your scanner. But when you're here tomorrow, I'll take you in the copy room and show you what I'm talking about. So don't let me forget to do that when you come up here.
Okay, I sure will.
The system administrators for AvidXchange, your first point of contact is Irene Eubanks. She is your first point of contact in all things accounts payable. I am the secondary backup, and Karina is the third. And each one. Yeah, that's okay. Now, in the back of your AvidXchange user's guide, all of that is listed in there.
Okay.
And without further ado, we are going to take a look at AvidXchange. So bear with me while I get Internet Explorer pulled up. Hold on one second. All right. Let me slide this Word document over here real quick. All right. So if you want to save the URL that I sent you is the landing page for AvidXchange. I sent that in that email. So it's avidexchange.com. Or additionally, you can also have login.avidexchange.net. You can use that link as well. Now this URL is also part of your user guide that I sent over to you. But I just wanted to jump into avidexchange.com to kind of show you how your suppliers and partners can actually create an account through AvidXchange. So this is the landing page. And if your vendors or suppliers will click on the suppliers link, this is where they can actually go in, watch a video on how they can, upload and manage their account themselves. So they can actually log in as a supplier or a vendor and manage their account. So hold on just a second there. So if I'm a vendor and you've told me, hey, just go to avidexchange.com, go over to the suppliers link and create an account, or contact AvidXchange. They will provide you with account information. That's where they would go to access that. All right. If it's you and you use the AvidXchange.com versus the login.avidexchange.net link, you would just click on login. Now, have you logged in yet?
Not yet. That's what I was trying to find the credentials to log in to get the approval. I looked up in my search unit the email, but I can't find it. I have to go through it individually one by one.
All right. So I'll resend that when we get done here. Right now, if we click on login, you'll see that there's a couple of options here, but it says AvidXchange, purchase order, invoice, and payment system. So this is where we will log in at. And when you come in to the system, you're going to see that you have your username, which will always be your email address. And then you will have your pre-assigned password. And your password is only temporary. So the first time that you log into the system, when you put that temporary password in, it's going to prompt you to set up a security question and a new password. Now, if you ever forget your password, you can just click on this link. I cannot access my account. And then it'll ask you to, reset your password. Now, I'm not going to go through the motions here because it'll reset mine, and I don't want to do that yet. So if you just put your username in, which will be your email address, and click on the reset password link, that will send you an email to your email account, to your Outlook, and you'll just follow the prompts to reset your password. All right. So let me slide this right back over real quick. So for you, the first time that you're logging in, you're going to, like I said, receive the temporary password. You'll enter your email address and then the temporary password that I've given you. The system will automatically prompt you to enter a secret question and to actually define or redefine a new password. Okay?
Okay.
If you try to log in 5 or more times and get the system will lock you out. Okay? So then you will have to go through the reset password links in order to reset your password. All right, so my screen, this is the actual landing page for AvidXchange. And when you're in here, you've got a couple of quick search boxes. So if you wanted to search for an invoice, you can search for a vendor. I have a few more options than you do, like the user and entity. We don't use purchase orders at this time in Avid. So your searches are specifically defined for invoice, and you can also search for a vendor. Then you have a message center. And it says all over budget ad hoc will be directed to Jackie Murphy effective immediately. So as you're logging in, always give the message center a quick glance to make sure that we haven't added anything to it. So all invoices should be processed by the 25th of each month. You're going to run your check register and a comparative income statement to ensure that all contractual invoices have been entered or processed through Avid Inbox or the Avid indexers. Okay, so what we're saying here is that by the 25th of the month, if you run your comparative and you see that your gas bill or your electric bill or your trash bill or your landscape hasn't been processed on your comparative income statement, then you need to reach out to that vendor or supplier and make sure, have you missed the invoice? Have they sent it? Go ahead and email it to me so that you can get it processed before we close the month.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So when you log in, your tabs across the top are very limited. You have your home tab, you have your reports tab. This is acting kind of slow. The wheels are running, so bear with me while it's thinking. It's just spinning, so wow. Must be our internet connection. Okay, so you have a reports tab. Now there's several reports that are available here to you. I will send you a list of reports that you can anticipate possibly pulling within the system, but there are a lot of reports that are added here that are available to you. However, let me just tell you that the best reports for you to utilize is going to come out of MRI, your accounts payable reports, because your accounts payable reports is what's going to tell you what checks are cut, if the checks have been cut, and all of your budget status as of that day. There may be some reports that are useful to you in AvidXchange, and I'll just send you that list once we've concluded here. Okay. The other tab that you're able to access is My Profile. So once you come into My Profile, it allows you to reset your password. Really, that is all that you're able to do. Okay. Now, you're going to see down here, approval notification subscription. That is already predefined. I've already set that up. That means that at 9 a.m., at noon, and at 3 p.m., if there's new invoices that have been uploaded to your inbox or your approval queue, then you'll get email notifications. And that only comes through, as you can see, on Monday. Mine looks a little different than yours, but Monday through Friday. So we don't send any notifications to you on Saturday and Sunday. So what is also additionally, there's what is called a proxy approver. So a proxy approver, you would only use this in the event that you're leaving to go on vacation and someone else has been approved to approve and process your invoices during your absence. Okay? Yes, so at this point in time, whoever is defined to be your proxy approver, you're going to notify Irene who your proxy approver is and how long you're going to be out of the office on vacation, and she will set up your proxy approver and how long they're going to be responsible for taking care of your property. And Avid Inbox. So Avid Inbox tab is something that you'll also have access to. This is the functionality that allows you to access and upload your invoices yourself. And we're gonna talk more about that. I just wanted to kind of bring your eyes towards the tabs at the top and kind of what they're for. So you've got your home tab, and this is what's called the pending approval queue. Now, I see everyone's invoices in the approval queue, so don't let that intimidate you. When you log into the system, you're only going to see the invoices that are specifically set up for your property that have hit your approval queue through the indexers or what you've uploaded yourself. Okay. Now, that invoice, that email that you sent me said that you had pending approvals. Did you just mean to ask me what do I do with invoices I've received?
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly if I was, well, I knew I'm supposed to approve them, but I didn't want to touch it until I knew exactly
Okay.
the process.
All right. So once we get done kind of reviewing here, we'll talk about what you need to do with the invoices that you do have. This will allow us to process a couple. All right. So at the bottom of your pending approval queue, you also have what's called is an invoice search. So if you need to search within Avid, historical invoices, this allows you the opportunity to define, if you know what the invoice number is, you can plug the invoice number in. You can search by invoice date, create, the date that the invoice hit the queue, the due date. You can actually define all of those parameters, or you can just put in one parameter. You can put in the amount of the invoice and the invoice number. You can, tell the system what kind of invoice it is, whether it was a standard invoice, a credit memo, the status of the invoice, it's an unprocessed invoice. Anyway, these are all of the parameters that allow you to search a specific invoice. Now, you can also search by vendor, which mine is not coming up for some reason. I don't know what's going on with our little system here. Let me try doing this from weird. Okay, so you can also do it by vendor. So let's just say that I wanted to look up invoices for, I don't know, let's say Georgia Power.
Okay.
You can just type in Georgia Power, and you can, define dates, specific entity. Now, your search criteria is only going to pull up information regarding to the properties that you're tied to. And you're only tied to Shadowwood, so you're only going to be able to search for invoices. Whereas I'm a global user and I can see all properties, entities, and vendors and invoices.
Okay.
Yay. So you see, once I've selected my search criteria, now I can see all of the invoices that I, wanted to see. I could do that by date of the invoice, the amounts, etc. And then I can see that it's approved, meaning I've already coded it and submitted it. And then I can also, click on that invoice and take a look at it and just, review that invoice and find out whatever information I needed to on that specific invoice. So the search feature is used quite a bit in AvidXchange.
Right.
All right. All right. So when you come in, when you get notification to your email that you have invoices in your pending approval queue, you'll log in to your AvidXchange account and you'll come in, and then they'll be sitting here for you to process. Okay. So when you come in, there's a couple of shortcut keys here. It allows you to, one, get a quick view of the invoice. So if I just click on that, it'll bring up just a quick image. Doesn't allow me to process it here, just allows me to bring it up really quick. I can also click on the magnifying glass, which also gives me a little information regarding that invoice. I can also just see a image of that invoice. So those are just some quick features that allow you to, look at that invoice. But to actually do something with the invoice, you have to click on the invoice link.
Okay.
Once you've clicked on the invoice link, that's going to bring up the invoice and allow you to start processing it for payment, or to start processing it for approvals and to submit for accounts payable. So when you come in, you've got two tabs. You got your header record and you've got a distribution record. At the top, you can return to your home screen. Once you've coded it, you can actually approve it. If there's something going on with this invoice and you don't want to pay it, but it's going to be in your queue, you can dispute it. If you dispute an invoice, you have to resolve that issue within 24 hours.
Okay.
You can also void an invoice. So if something's wrong with that invoice, the vendor made a mistake, you can actually void it. But just be careful because, and you really want to make sure, that that's what you want to do because you're still going to have to pay for that invoice. And I don't mean pay the vendor for it. I mean pay the $1.20 that it costs to process this invoice. Yeah, for Avid.
Okay.
All right. So when you come into the header record, it just gives you a brief, this invoice information, if it was sent to AvidXchange for the indexers, they've already uploaded all this information for you. They've keyed in the invoice number, the amount, invoice dates, and a brief description of who that is. So all you have to do is come in, verify that the information that they keyed in was correct. So if you look at the invoice, and let's say that invoice was actually for $950, but they made a mistake on this invoice, then you have a chance to change it in the invoice amount field. You can just update that to $950.
Okay.
Okay. So then once you're ready, in order to code it, so the distribution tab is actually where you go in, like you used to open the mail and code stamp it and, manually write on there what the code should be. This is where you do that electronically. So your property number will automatically default into the property code. Here is your general ledger codes. Now, did Anna provide you with a chart of accounts?
Not yet. No, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So let me make a note because I'm going to send you chart of accounts.
She explained it to me, but I don't have the chart yet.
Okay. So your chart of accounts is your general ledger codes that you would use to code your bills. And your codes, like I'm just 55. Okay, I think I've got that saved because I don't want to mess up his. He's already processed this, and I don't want to mess it up. But let's just say that it was for computer repairs. I can type in the word, start typing the word computer, and then find that there's a computer expense. If I know what the code is, I can start typing the code 5560, and then that will bring the code up. You don't have to type in the MR, that little prefix right there. Just start typing in the general ledger, or chart of account number, and that will bring up the code that you need to assign to that invoice.
Okay.
Now, let's say that there was multiple codes that were associated, like, let me come out of here. Let me go back in and see if I can find a better invoice that will allow for Kings 3. Let me just bring that up here. Well, in some cases, and let's say it's a Chadwell bill. A lot of times when you have Chad bills, there are multiple codes. You've got electrical, you got plumbing, you've got janitorial. Well, you have to break those you have to break down the invoice accordingly when you're coding it within AvidXchange. So let's just say that, this one had multiple codes. You would just come over here and I wish I had a better invoice to show you this. Let me see if I can find one. I don't want you to be confused. See. Unfortunately, there's not a lot in here. Like this says January lawn maintenance. Well, what if it said January lawn maintenance and tree trimming? And let's say that January lawn maintenance is for your contract or contractual, you would code that to your contractual code for contract landscape, but you would, code tree trimming to something else. Okay. You've got to break down your invoices that way. And I really don't have a good example here, but here, if we do landscape, we do monthly landscape contract. I wish I had Okay. Where is the code? All right. So let's say that part of the bill was landscape exterior contract, and you'll break down that code. I better take a screenshot of this because they're going to kill me if I mess up their bills.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say that it was $4,000. $4,000. Oh, God. I'm having a hard time. $4,000 for the monthly landscape. Then I need to put the rest of it to tree trimming. All I would do is add a line item. So I'm going to add a line. And I'm just making this stuff up now. Let's say it was for tree removal. So I select tree removal, update my description to tree removal building 3. And you see it automatically defaults the remaining balance of that invoice to that unless I actually code $900 to it. And you see right now, I have to end up with 100% allocation. So I can add another line item and put in there, let's see, janitorial. I'm just making stuff up now.
I get what you're saying, though.
Okay. And we'll just do chemicals. And it defaults the remaining $31. And between the 3 allocations, I've got 100%. Okay.
So that just basically breaks down, have every dollar accounted for if you have a large bill from the same company?
Right. So in most cases, when you make a chat order, your maintenance supervisor is going to sit down and he's going to order all of his electrical, all of his plumbing. Well, each one of those, depending on your budget, are going to have to go to a specific code. So you just you just send that bill, or it goes to the indexers. They upload it. You come in here and you're going to see how much is going to electrical. You'll put that on a line item. Then you'll put the amount for plumbing, janitorial, HVAC, etc. And you'll just break it down by GL code that way.
Got it.
All right. Now let me fix her invoice real quick. So it's monthly landscape. Let me double check here. Sorry, I'm trying to get to the chart of accounts. I just want to make sure that that's the right code for her property. Yeah. All right. So I believe she had that as monthly landscaping. So she put in there monthly landscaping. I probably need to have a discussion with her, but that doesn't tell. I mean, we know it's monthly landscaping because the chart of account or the code tells us that it's monthly landscaping. What I'm going to recommend to you is that you put the month that it's for.
Okay.
January landscape service.
Got it.
The entire bill goes to monthly landscape service. So I'm just going to leave this 100% allocated to this accounting code 5102. All right. Now, while we're in here, let's take a look. We've got the image tab. We have a vendor tab. So that's just telling us what vendor it's associated with. You've got a line item. And now this line item tab must always line up with your allocation tab or your distribution tab. Workflow tab. When you come in here, a workflow, you know, in some companies, you know, and according to your management contract, people, you know, can spend up to a certain dollar amount before they have to go to a secondary approval process. So let's say that your contract says that you can't spend any more than $2,500 on any one item without, you know, let's say your district manager or your director of operations giving you approval. Well, those are what's called workflows. Well, we only have two workflows in the system. We have a standard workflow, which is 99.9% of every invoice that you process will be to your standard workflow.
Okay.
The other workflow is a capital workflow. And what is a capital workflow? A capital workflow are for invoices that are coded to the 5999 chart of accounts, non-reoccurring capital. That is also in your AvidXchange user's guide. You don't have the chart of accounts, so you don't have a point of reference at this moment of what those codes are. But when I send that to you, take a look at the bottom. Those are non-reoccurring capital items. Those are for major capital projects. It's not for dishwashers. It's not for refrigerators. It's not for, you know, carpeting. Those are standard capital items. Capital workflow is only utilized for non-reoccurring or project-based capital items, i.e. you've repaved the entire parking lot, you're renovating the entire exteriors of your buildings, you're replacing every single HVAC system at your property. It's under a huge contract. So that's a capital workflow. So you can see at your property, 99.9% of the invoices that you get are going to be a standard workflow.
Right.
All right. So a capital workflow, if you change that to capital workflow, you'll enter ordered by and you'll put your username in there. And you will click on Assign or Assign Ad Hoc Approver. What happens is that automatically makes this invoice go out to Jackie's inbox. And we'll send her an email that says that you have a capital workflow invoice that needs her approval.
Got it.
She will have the opportunity to come in to her approval queue, take a look at it, and approve it. And once she approves it, it will land back in your approval queue to finalize it. It's kind of like a three-step process. You assign it. It goes to the next level, which will be Jackie. She reviews it, approves it, and then it just comes right back in your queue in order for you to actually finalize it.
Okay.
What is another reason that you would assign an ad hoc in a standard workflow? If you have your budget and you are over budget in a category or for an item, when you're over budget, you'll assign an ad hoc approver by clicking on Assign Ad Hoc. You will select Jackie Murphy.
Okay.
And you'll do over budget by $430. Please review and approve, and that information will be available to her. She will get an email from the system that says, hey, you have an over budget notification in your queue. Gives her a chance to come in, look at the invoice, and approve it. Okay, but you would hit assign, don't hit cancel. Now, listen, seeking approval after something is purchased is not the way we operate.
Right.
Okay. So once she creates your operating budget and you have $500 for refrigerators and you've expensed out all $500 for the month and you have an emergency and it comes up that you need another refrigerator, you need to actually email her that you need a third refrigerator and it's putting you over budget by this amount. Get her email approval and attach it in the attachments tab. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I remember you said that earlier. Okay.
Yeah. So not only will you ad hoc her in, but you will also attach that original email where you've got her approvals. And adding attachments is no different than anything else by just choosing the file where that approval lives. Let me see if I can just pick any old thing. So you'd find the PDF of that email, that approval, and then attach it. I'm not going to attach it on here because that would be confusing for Anna at Low Water at Bass. Okay. Once you choose the file that you want to attach, then you'll just click on attach and it will be there.
Okay. Can you hold for me 1 second? I think, because I had a sign on the door, but I think it's emergency because they just walked.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I thought it was, I wanted to make sure it was an emergency because she walked by the window to get my attention. So she wanted to turn in her.
Oh, okay. All right. So not only can you do attachments in the system, but you can also review the history of this invoice. So, you can see where the invoice was received through the email. Invoice was created and saved, and it gives you the dates that this is happening. Invoice validated and signed to workflow. And these are all steps that are happening either by the indexers as this invoice goes through the process, or as you upload it into the system. Let's just say that you didn't need to assign an ad hoc, but you just wanted to send someone, let's just say, log a comment about this particular invoice. You can actually, let's just say you wanted to send it to Jackie. You can actually put her email address in there. You can also select users by a box popping up and select the users in the system.
Okay.
And you can just add a note, Jackie, this is the invoice we were waiting on. If you need to take a look at it. But you can actually log a comment in there doesn't mean that it's stopping you from moving forward with approvals and submissions and all that, but it lets her know that, you know, it's in there. And, you know, if you need her to take an extra look at it before you approve it, you know, you can, you know, just say, you know, Jackie, I'm not ad hocing you, but wanted you to take a look at it, this invoice, before I approve it. And then once you've, you know, entered that comment, you can actually hit the submit button.
Okay.
And then that will send an email link to her to look at this invoice. And then you two can have a discussion about it.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now let me get rid of all that. So those are your tabs. You've got your image tab. And from your image tab, you can actually download this invoice to save it, you know, on your system, or you can print it out. You got your vendor tab. Your line items tab is all contingent upon what you've done here in your distributions tab. Okay. Workflow tab just tells you where this invoice is, and if you need to reassign it, you do so by going to workflow, changing it to capital workflow if indeed that's a, you know, capital workflow invoice, and assigning it to Jackie Murphy. She's the only person that is allowed to approve non-reoccurring capital items. Okay. Your history tab just is a overview of the steps that this invoice has gone through. If you, you know, if you had a vendor that says, hey, it's been 19 years since, you know, that invoice didn't make it and this, that, and another, you can actually, you know, counter them by going into your history tab. Even if it's been approved and submitted by that search function that I showed you earlier, you could go into the history tab, look at it and go, no, we received that invoice on this date, January 3rd at 8:59. You know, it was uploaded into the system. I actually coded it on January 3rd at 9:36 a.m. and submitted it. Okay, I submitted it to accounts payable at 9:36 a.m. So you can see, you know, by having this history tab, you know, it can become valuable if you have a vendor that says, you know, you're not processing my invoices timely or something to that nature.
Right.
Log a comment. Log a comment is only a way to document. You know, you can actually save the information by clicking save here and saving where you're at, but actually adding a note and sending it, I don't know, it could be to Anna as your mentor. You could put Anna in there and say, Anna, would you mind taking a look at this invoice and making sure that I coded it correctly? I don't want to send it to accounts payable wrong, and, you know, I'm still learning. Misha, can you take a look at it? Will you mind taking a look at this invoice and make sure, you know, that it's correct before I approve it? You know, you could just put our email address in there. You can CC someone, add your comment about that issue that you want us to look at, and then hit submit. That will land that comment into our email, and that'll give us a chance to come in there, take a look at it for you, and say, yeah, that's perfect, Makia. Go ahead and approve it. Attachments tab. Attachments tab allows you to choose a file to include with this invoice. So let's say, you know, it was for a flower project, and you took all of these amazing pictures of that flower project, and you wanted to attach the pictures, and you wanted to attach the, you know, the contract, and you wanted to attach the proposal. You can do all of that through your attachments tab. The attachments tab allows you to attach Word document files, PDFs, JPEGs, and PNG files. And if you need something, another file or document format, and you're not sure, just let me know and I can find that out for you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you got your header tab. That is your preliminary information, about this invoice. Your distribution tab, whether you're coding that invoice out 100% to one accounting code or chart of account, or if you're breaking it down into multiple, you can add line items. You can delete line items. Like if you've made a mistake, you can click in the little checkbox, click on delete, and that will remove this whole line item and allow you to start over.
Okay.
All right. Once you've coded your invoice out completely, all you do now is click on approve. So header is review, distribution is coding, workflow is reassigning it if you need to go a step further on approvals. Once you've done that, you just click approve.
Got it.
And then you can return to your approval queue and go on to your next. You can go on to your next invoice. And as you process those invoices will clear out of your queue until they're all gone.
Got it.
Now, I continue to see them. They're still in here for me to look at because they're in step 2 of the standard workflow, which is up at this level. So I can still see all of the invoices. So really that is all there is to processing an invoice that hits your approval queue. So once you get an email from AvidXchange that you've got pending invoices, you'll just log in. They'll be sitting here in your queue and you just start knocking them out one by one. You just click on them, make sure that they're accurate, go to your distribution tab and start coding them, whether it's one code or multiple codes.
All right, I think I can do it. It looks pretty easy.
Yep, it is pretty easy. Now, if you want to change your password while you're in here, all you have to do is click on reset password.
Okay.
Now, there's one more tab that we need to look at here, which is the Avid inbox. So as we've said before, there are critical and then there's non-critical invoices. So if you've got an invoice, that you can scan and send to your AvidXchange, to your Fickling AP at avidbill.com, just scan them and send them over and let the indexers key them into the system. If it's an invoice that you need Irene to deal with today or first thing in the morning, then you don't send it to Fickling AP at avidbill.com. That will take 2 to 3 days for that invoice to hit your queue, or up to 24 to 72 hours. Sometimes they do turn them around quicker than that, but you don't want to be relying upon that. So in that case, what you will do is you will go to your scanner, you will scan that invoice into a file on your computer, and you're going to upload it yourself through the inbox.
Okay.
And then when you're ready, you'll just go to your Avid Inbox tab, and you'll log in to Avid Inbox. Now, log in to Avid Inbox just follows the same login that you have for your main AvidXchange login.
Okay.
Now, I can see all of the properties invoices, but when you come in, this is going to be a blank page.
Got it.
let's see if all right, let me see if I can, yeah, it'll just be a blank page, just like this, okay? So what you have to do is actually upload the invoice. So you'll click on More Actions, Upload Invoice or Invoices.
Got it.
Now, just like with anything else, all you'll do is browse for those files that you have saved on your computer. So you'll click Browse, and you'll go to, what I recommend is that on your desktop, you have an Avid Inbox Invoices folder created.
Okay, Avid Inboxes, Invoices folder.
So just create you a folder on your desktop that says Avid Inbox. Yeah, you don't have to name it Avid Inbox Invoices, but have you a file created on your desktop that says Avid Inbox. So when you're browsing, you can go straight to your Avid Inbox. And what I do is AP invoices for a specific date, and I try to keep track of those that way. So you'll just click on the folder where that invoice lives, and upload it. So you select the file, and then once you've selected the file, you'll click on Upload Invoice. Now let me see if I can find that invoice, because I was on a different tab. Bear with me. All right. So your invoice will appear in your entry screen. Now, this is what the indexers are doing in the background when you send your invoices to Fickling AP at AvidXchange. This is what they're doing. But in this case, you're having to do the work for them because you need something to happen with this invoice today. So when you come in here, what you'll do is put in your vendor. So let's say it was AAA Staffing. You'll just start searching for the vendor. So let's say it's apartment, maybe it's apartment staffing. So find the vendor. Customer account number. So if this is, I'm sorry, let me back up here to the invoice type, Makia. This is what we consider a standard invoice. The only other kind of invoice that there is a utility invoice. So if this was Georgia Power, Atlanta Gas, something like that, then yes, your water, you will change that to a utility. Find your vendor or supplier. If it's a utility invoice, then you're going to have and a lot of times you're going to have an account number that's associated with this vendor. And I don't think there is one on AAA Staffing. No, there's only an invoice number. So if there's an account number that's associated with this invoice or that utility invoice, you'll enter that customer or account number, okay? And let me check real quick. I want to make sure that I'm telling you what to do for your Georgia Power invoices or whoever your utility company is. Hang on one second. Let me go to Ask Irene. One second. Okay, so the ship to, because I'm a global user, I'm going to see all the entities that we have set up, but you will just put your property in. So you'll just select your property. Ordered by, you can just leave that blank. or you can put your name in there, you know, or your supervisors, your maintenance people aren't set up in there, so it's better to, you know, basically just leave that blank.
Okay.
You can go ahead and give it a workflow here, so it's a standard workflow. Or if it was a capital workflow, you can select capital workflow. Memo, you can, that's just a free form fill. You don't have to put anything in there.
Okay.
Invoice number, just look at the invoice, get the invoice number and just type that in. We don't use purchase order or purchase order numbers at this point in time. We hope to in the near future. Work order number, we don't use these fields, so you can leave that blank. Payment terms, we are a net 30 company, so 99.9% of the time, you're going to select net 30 unless it specifically states something different on your invoice.
Okay.
So you want to actually choose what it says, but for the most part, all of your invoice should be net 30. If this is an emergency situation, you probably want to put due on receipt.
Got it. Okay. Because that net 30 is basically a 30-day payout?
Yes.
Okay.
Enter the invoice date. So we go up here, we find the invoice date. And it will look at the payment terms, due on receipt, 10 days, 30 days, and automatically put a due date based on that net 30. If it's off 1 or 2 days, you can actually manually change that to what it says on the invoice.
Okay.
Okay. Then down here, you will just enter the amount of that invoice. If this was let's say a Georgia Power bill, Georgia Power bills have the date range of service.
Right.
So if this is a Georgia Power bill, you would enter your service start date and your ending service date. Even if it's a prorated bill for 3 days, you'd put, you know, 1/1/2018 to 1/3/2018. If you got a Georgia Power invoice in the mail that had a previous balance on it, but you're only processing the current amount of that bill, you can also enter what the unpaid, you know, what the previous balance was on that bill. It doesn't mean it's going to increase what you're processing now. Again, it's kind of like a memo field of a previous balance being on that invoice, but we're only paying, you know, the amount that we put in here.
Okay, got it.
Did that confuse? Okay, are you sure?
No,
I kind of confused.
I get what you're saying.
Okay.
Because I could just say amount due at this time and then the total.
Yeah, so if the total bill, if you're looking at the total bill, and it was $151, but let's say 30 of that was from last month that has been paid, you would only put, you know, 121.60 here, and then the previous balance of 30 there. And that just, it's historical information. But this bill is 151.60. All right. So once you've keyed this invoice in, I'm not actually going to submit this because somebody will end up having to pay for it. You'll click on submit.
Got it.
What happens when I hit submit, and let me very quickly, let me delete this invoice. Let me delete it. So when you hit submit, what happens is when you go back over to your approval queue, it's going to be sitting in your approval queue.
Okay.
So when you click on Avid Invoice, that takes you back over to your approval queue, and it'll just be sitting in there. I can't show you that because I didn't hit submit.
But I get what you're saying. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. So that is basically it in a nutshell. Let me just go through the user's guide and see if there's any additional areas that we need to maybe discuss real quick. Let me suspend the recording. And
Okay.
if you have any questions, please call on me, shoot me an email, give me a call, and I'm glad to help you at any time through the initial process and thereafter even, okay?
I really, 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 really appreciate you.
No, I really, really, really appreciate you. So I will see you tomorrow, either in the morning or whenever it is that you're going to stop by.
I'll try to be there by 9:30. I'm going to stop by office, make sure nobody's stuck renting the door, and then I'll come straight over.
Yep. Perfect.
Right.
I'll see you in the morning. Okay.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye. You too.